Today we're going to talk about projects. Projects is where we're going to take a lot of information and embed it in a project and keep a lot of similar threads of conversation in the same place. It's almost like a folder system, but it's more like a workspace where you work on similar kinds of tasks. The ChatGPT will take some of those conversations and the parameters of those conversations and store them in the memory so that it'll better inform how it responds in the future. If you've used ChatGPT in the past without using projects and found it frustrating that it can't hold the thread between multiple conversations, this is where we're going to solve that in projects. So I'm going to go to the screen share and we'll walk through that. Okay, we are back in ChatGPT, and this is the main window where you can start a conversation. And I can ask, are beans healthy? I wouldn't ever ask that. But I can throw something in here and it can respond to me. Great. Now, if I leave this conversation and start a new conversation, so say if I do a new chat, that chat we just had will live down here. So if we collapse all of these, we're going to collapse that, we're going to collapse that, we're going to collapse that. If we collapse all these folders, tabs, they're like folders. These are ChatGPTs. These are chats that are designed to do a specific thing. So one is supposed to be an SEO expert. One is my bean queen who helps me write bean content. GPTs came out first. And that was like the first attempt at personalizing or tailoring your experience with this ChatGPT in a really more narrowed focus rather than the entire internet. Projects came out second, and I think is much more powerful than ChatGPTs. ChatGPTs have a place and a purpose, but I don't find myself using them nearly as much as I do with projects. Now, under projects is chat. So this is the last chat we had, which was the Are Beans Healthy? This is where I want to focus most of our time, projects. We're going to open up projects. I have a bunch of different projects going. One of them is to take recipes from recipe testing to publication. And this is my most used project. Here are threads of this, or sub-projects or threads of this particular project with all my different recipes. So if I go to this lentil pasta recipe, you can see that this lentil pasta recipe lives underneath this little folder. So mine has a little person on it because I actually share this ChatGPT with my VA. So I'm going to open and close this. And my lentil pasta project is here. And you can see my Canvas document with my last draft in here and my conversation there. We'll get more in depth about these individual conversations in a bit. This is another recipe within that thread. So when I'm hitting on it, it's opening up that Canvas document, but here's the whole thread. And then if I want to go back into the Canvas document, I hit edit, and then that's how you get to the screen. Remember, you can make the chat bigger, or you can make the document bigger. I tend to make the document bigger because that kind of just makes me feel like I'm editing within this space. I can close that with this X up here, and then I'm back to the conversation. If I want to get back to the main folder, I can hit this little folder icon up here at the top left, or the folder, the name next to the folder icon in the sidebar. This goes all the way back to August 20th. I know I've had more conversations in this thread before August 20th, lots of them, for months before that. Now, in theory, they will not be deleted, says the ChatGPT and what I can research online, but they drop off in this folder at some point. And not just because of that, but it is a good redundancy is when I'm done with a conversation, I always copy over my last draft of a recipe or wherever I left off in that conversation and put it over into a Google Doc. So I have that copy. Now, this is a lot of recipes to be cranking out in that period of time. But say if something happened and 6 months later, I wasn't able to work on the blog for 6 months. If some of these conversations was lost and I had no record of it, I would be frustrated. So it's nice to have that redundancy in your Google Drives. Okay, so these are projects. I have one for a recipe, taking a recipe from testing phase through a quick SEO phase, drafting the recipe, making social media captions and email copy and Pinterest captions. That all happens within these conversations. I also have a separate one for updating posts. So if we come in here, this one's newer for me. I've been working on this for the last few months. I had another version of it, and this is my newest version. But in both cases, this is, if you come to the top and I go here, I have these context documents. I have a blog formatting guide, so I have instructions about how it should format a blog post when it comes time to do that. Brand and style guide, which in a few lessons, I'm going to go over how to make your first brand and style guide that will help ChatGPT sound like you and achieve your brand or business goals while it's writing. And these are the instructions. So this is how I want it to work through some stages of our interaction. So I'm going to X this out. The way I upload those files is I hit this, and then I can just pull from wherever I need to pull from. So I'm going to X that out. When I come back to, these are for new recipes, recipes to publication. These are the other context documents I have in here. So I'm going to X that out. So what's great about projects is all of the content of all of these recipes is informing how the ChatGPT responds to me in the future. So as I say things like, please don't say favorite weeknight meal, in my conversation with it, I could say, I don't like when you say favorite weeknight meal. Please don't ever use that phrase again. Now, if I put it in these context documents, I shouldn't have to say it many times. If I'm just having it in the chat, it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 times of me saying that, and then it's really going to start to respond and be like, oh, she does not like that. She rejects that response, and so we're going to take that out of all of these words it could produce for us. It's going to take that out of the realm of possibilities. That's what's great about projects. Now, the way my new recipe workflow works is a little different than my updating recipe project works, and that's by design. If I'm writing a new recipe, my workflow looks different. If I'm looking at an old blog post and trying to figure out, should I change the recipe a little bit? Do I need to did I get some comments that said it wasn't working well and I need to update the recipe? My workflow is going to be, or this is an amazing recipe, I'm just ranking on the second page. Like, how do I get to the first page? That's a different conversation for myself, even before ChatGPT. But now I'm having that with a tool, so that workflow is going to look different. Now, this one for me is, I've helped a bunch of other food bloggers, and this has been a helpful playground to either put their design specific context documents for them. And I can say, this is for a different food blogger. Please reference these documents differently than you would anywhere else. I have a bean expert content creation. So I have some informational posts about beans that aren't recipe posts. So that one's helpful in terms of please reference academic studies, things like that I might not need in a lentil pasta post. I don't need it to be as academic about the writing when it's a recipe post, but if I'm trying to make some health claims about beans, I need that ChatGPT to be more rigorous in the research it does about any kind of health claims or historical references. Okay, so those are a bunch of my ChatGPTs. Again, if you want to find old chats, they're here. I always like to have a backup copy of where I left it off in the conversation, just for in case purposes. It does do a lot of storage, but I don't think about ChatGPT as a storage place. It is not Google Drive. It is a tool that's going to help produce a lot of things. It's not meant to be a storage system. These files are instructions, and it's almost like if you had a new employee, it's like giving them the cultural norms in your business. That's where you're going to help inform the ChatGPT there. Claude also has projects like this, and you can upload context documents as well. Claude does not have the Canvas feature, we're going to talk more about context documents in the next video, which will be a little longer because there's so many possibilities of what can happen in a context document. And I will see you there.